"If you don't keep paying for us, you're out of the family," my mother said as my dad nodded. So I said, "You're not my family, just a bunch of freeloaders, so I'm leaving. Pay your own bills." My name is Ivan, and before all of this, I had the perfect family. We lived in a modest house in a quiet neighborhood. There were 5 of us: my mother, Marcella, my father, Rodrigo, my younger sister, Monica, my older brother, Andres, and me. The house wasn't luxurious, but it had enough: 3 bedrooms, a small dining room, a kitchen that always smelled like coffee, and an old TV in the living room that we all shared. Were we a hardworking family? Or so I thought. Everyone contributed something to keep the house afloat. My father worked at an auto parts factory, my mother was a cashier at a supermarket, Andres had a job at an appliance store, and Monica worked part-time at a coffee shop while studying. I, for my part, had gotten a temporary job at a warehouse loading boxes and organizing inventory. It wasn't the best job in the world, and the pay was low, but it was enough to cover my share of the bills: rent, electricity, water, internet. We all did our part, and although sometimes there were arguments about money or who had used the bathroom the most, everything seemed to work. I remember those days with a mixture of nostalgia and bitterness. At night, after work, we would sit in the living room to watch a series on TV. Monica always wanted romantic comedies, while Andres insisted on action movies. My mother used to complain that the volume was too loud, and my father only asked that we not fight over the remote. I wasn't one to fight much, so I went along with whatever they decided. Sometimes we made popcorn or bought some fast food to share. They were simple moments, but in my mind, that's what it meant to be a family. Being together, supporting each other, laughing, even if everything wasn't perfect. My job at the warehouse was exhausting. I would wake up at 5 in the morning, spend 8 or 9 hours moving heavy boxes, and arrive home with a sore back. I earned just enough to cover my share of the expenses and save a little, but I didn't complain. My parents always said that family came first, that we all had to sacrifice for each other. "Ivan, the day one of us rises, we all rise," my father would say, patting me on the shoulder with a smile. I nodded because I believed in that. I believed we were a team. Everything changed when I got the new job. It was like a dream. I had been secretly sending out resumes, looking for something better, something that would give me a little more stability. One afternoon, while I was on my break at the warehouse, I received a call. It was from a marketing company that had seen my resume on an online platform. They wanted me to come in for an interview. I couldn't believe it. I didn't have a college degree, just a technical course in graphic design that I had done online, but something in my resume caught their attention. I went to the interview nervous, wearing my best shirt and some shoes that Andres had lent me because mine were worn out. I spoke with the manager, a kind but straightforward guy, who explained that they needed someone creative, eager to learn, and that they were willing to give me a chance. A week later, they called to tell me that the position was mine. The salary was almost 10 times more than what I earned at the warehouse. Not only that, but it came with benefits, health insurance, performance bonuses, and the possibility of growing within the company. When I got home that night, I was so excited I couldn't stop smiling. I gathered everyone in the living room to tell them the news. My mother hugged me, my father patted me on the back, Monica said she was proud of me, and Andres joked that now I would be the rich one in the family. We all laughed. That night we ordered pizza to celebrate, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like things were getting better, not just for me, but for all of us. I didn't know then that this happiness would be short-lived. I didn't know that my new job, instead of uniting us, would show me the true face of my family. At first, everything seemed to remain the same. I went to my new job, which was in a modern office in the city center. My position was as a marketing assistant, helping to create advertising campaigns, designing images for social media, and collaborating with the creative team. It was a new world for me, but I loved it. My colleagues were friendly, my boss gave me positive feedback, and even though I worked long hours, I felt it was worth it. For the first time, I had a salary that not only covered basic expenses, but also allowed me to save and indulge in small pleasures, like buying new clothes or going out to eat with friends occasionally. At home, we continued to split the expenses as always. I paid my share of the rent, utilities, and sometimes bought extra things for the house, like a new microwave when the old one broke down. My parents and siblings continued working, or so I believed. Nobody told me anything strange, and although I noticed that Andres and Monica went out more often, I didn't think much of it. I thought maybe they were also having a little more luck with money. Everything changed one night, a few weeks after I started my new job. It was a Friday, and I had had a long day at the office. I had worked 12 hours because we were finishing an important campaign for a client. I arrived home exhausted, wanting to shower and sleep, but when I opened the door, I found my whole family gathered in the living room. My father was sitting in the big armchair with a serious expression. My mother was beside him with her arms crossed. Monica and Andres were on the sofa looking at their phones, but they looked up when I entered. The atmosphere felt heavy, as if something bad had happened. "Ivan, sit down," my father said, pointing to a chair they had placed in the center of the room, as if it were some kind of interrogation. "What's going on?" I asked, confused. I took off my backpack and sat down, feeling everyone's eyes on me. My father cleared his throat and began to speak. "Son, things have changed. The factory where I work made staff cuts. They laid me off." He paused, as if it hurt him to say it. "And I'm not the only one. Your mother was also laid off from the supermarket. And your siblings, well, they also lost their jobs." I looked at Monica and Andres, waiting for them to say something, but they just lowered their gaze. Monica fiddled with her phone, and Andres scratched the back of his neck uncomfortably. All at the same time, I asked incredulously. I couldn't understand how all four of them had lost their jobs suddenly. It was too much of a coincidence. "That's right," my mother said in a tone that admitted no doubt. "The situation is difficult, Ivan. Companies are cutting staff everywhere. But don't worry, we're looking for something new. We just need a little time." "Sure, time," Andres added with a smile that seemed strange to me, as if he were holding back laughter. I didn't know what to say. I felt bad for them, but at the same time, something didn't add up. How was it possible that all four of them were out of work at the same time? But I didn't want to argue. They were my family, and they had always told me that family came first. If they were going through a bad time, I had to help them. That's what they had always taught me. "Okay," I said, trying to sound calm. "How can I help? I can cover more of the household expenses while you look for something new." My mother smiled, but it wasn't a smile of gratitude. It was more of a smile of relief, triumph. I couldn't decipher it at that moment. "Ivan, you're a good son," she said, standing up and approaching me. "We knew we could count on you. From now on, you'll take care of everything. The rent, the utilities, and you'll give us a monthly allowance for our personal expenses. Family comes first, right?" I looked at my father, waiting for him to say something, but he just nodded. Monica and Andres also nodded, as if everything had already been decided. I felt cornered. I didn't want to say no, because how could I refuse? They were my family. If they were in trouble, I had to support them. "Okay," I finally said, although something inside me felt wrong. "I'll pay everything, but you're going to look for work, right? This can't be forever." Of course," my father said, raising his hands as if to calm me down. "It's temporary, son, just until things get better." That night, I couldn't sleep well. I tossed and turned in bed, thinking about what had happened. I had agreed to pay for everything, but I couldn't help but feel that something was wrong. I didn't know then that that meeting in the living room was just the beginning of a lie that would change my life forever. The following days were a whirlwind. I started paying the full rent, utilities, internet, everything. In addition, every month I gave my parents and siblings an amount of money for their personal expenses. At first, I thought it would be temporary, that they would soon find work and we would go back to splitting the bills as before, but it wasn't like that. Every day I would come home after working 12 hours, exhausted, my eyes burning from staring at the computer screen, and every day I would find my family in the living room watching Netflix, eating snacks, or playing video games. No one seemed to be looking for work. No one seemed worried. Once I saw a post from Monica on Instagram, a photo in a bar with her friends, with an expensive cocktail in her hand and the caption, "Living the life." I was angry, but I didn't say anything. I thought maybe she was just trying to relax after a hard day. Andres was even worse. He posted stories on his social media from parties, with beers in hand, laughing with his friends. I once saw him come home at 3 in the morning smelling of alcohol and with a grin from ear to ear. When I asked him where he had been, he just said, "Relaxing, brother. You should do the same, relax." "With what money?" I said angrily. "With yours," he laughed as if it were a joke. "Don't worry, Ivan, family comes first, right? You can handle it." Those words stuck with me. You can handle it. Every time I heard them, I felt a pang in my chest, but I didn't say anything. I kept working, paying, and believing that I was doing the right thing. Over time, things got worse. My parents and siblings not only stopped looking for work, but they started asking me for more money. Ivan, we need a little more this month. Life is expensive, my mother would say. Ivan, give me some extra to buy a couple of things, Andres would say. Monica didn't ask directly, but she always dropped hints like, it would be nice to go to the movies, but I don't have a penny. And like an idiot, I kept giving, because they were my family, because I believed that's what I should do. Time passed with the same routine, and one day I came home, and no one was there. I thought maybe they had gone out to look for work or to run some errands. But when I checked social media, I saw that all four of them, my mother, my father, Monica, and Andres, were on a trip. They had gone to the beach, to a nice hotel with a pool and everything. They had posted photos smiling, sunbathing, eating seafood. And me? Meanwhile, I was at the office working until midnight to pay their bills. They hadn't invited me. They hadn't even told me they were leaving. I felt like a fool, like an ATM. They only called when they needed money. That night, sitting alone in the living room, looking at the photos of my family on the beach, something inside me broke. It wasn't just anger. It was a mixture of disappointment and exhaustion. I had worked nonstop, sacrificing my time, my energy, my dreams, to keep afloat a family that clearly didn't value me. But the worst part wasn't that they were using my money to have fun. The worst part was that I was beginning to suspect it was all a lie. The following days were torture. I'd arrive home after 12 hours at the office, my head full of numbers, strategies, and deadlines, only to find my mother, father, Monica, and Andres in the same routine, sitting in the living room watching TV, eating snacks, or just lazing around. No one mentioned looking for work. No one talked about the difficult situation that had supposedly left them unemployed. When I tried to bring up the subject, there was always an excuse. Ivan, it's not that easy, my mother, Marcella, would say, in a tone that sounded more like a reprimand than an explanation. Companies aren't hiring. Besides, you're earning well. Why should we stress ourselves? It's temporary, brother, Andres would add, always with that mocking smile that was starting to get on my nerves. Relax, enjoy being the man of the house, right? Man of the house. I didn't feel like the man of the house. I felt like an idiot. But I kept paying the rent, the electricity, the water, the internet, the food. And not only that, every month I gave each of them an amount of money for their personal expenses. My mother said she needed it for household things, although I never saw her buy anything useful. My father asked for emergencies, but he always smelled of beer when he came home. Monica bought new clothes and expensive makeup. And Andres, well, Andres spent it on parties, video games, and who knows what else. All with my money. One morning, while I was getting ready for work, I found a receipt on the kitchen table. It was from an expensive restaurant, one of those places where dinner for 4 people cost more than I spent on food for the whole month. The receipt was dated from the previous weekend, when they were on their trip. I stared at the paper, my heart pounding. Not only were they using me, but they weren't even bothering to hide it. That night, when I got home, I tried to talk to them. I gathered them in the living room, just as they had done with me weeks before. My hands were shaking, but I tried to stay calm. I need you to do something, I said, looking at each of them. I can't keep paying for everything myself. This isn't fair. You have to look for work and help me with the bills. My mother looked at me as if I had said something offensive. My father let out a chuckle as if I were joking. Monica rolled her eyes, and Andres crossed his arms, smiling as always. Ivan, don't be dramatic, my mother, Marcella, said, in that authoritarian tone she used when she wanted to end a discussion. Family comes first. You have a good job, you can handle this. We're looking, but it's not that easy. Looking, I retorted, feeling the anger rising in my throat. I don't see you looking. I see you watching Netflix all day, going out to parties, going on trips with my money. This isn't fair. Ivan, calm down, my father, Rodrigo, said, raising a hand as if he were a referee. Don't make us feel bad. We gave you everything when you were little. Now it's your turn to return the favor. Return the favor? I shouted, unable to contain myself. I'm paying all the rent, the utilities, your expenses, everything. And you don't do anything? Monica laughed as if my anger were a joke. Ivan, don't be selfish. We're a family. If you have it, you share. That's how it works. Andres leaned forward, with that arrogant look that always made me nervous. Look, little brother, relax. You earn well, we don't. Enjoy being the man of the house, right? Besides, what do you want so much money for if you're always working? That comment was like a stab in the back. Not only were they using my money, but they were mocking me for working so hard. So I dropped the bomb. This is over. From now on, I'm not paying anymore. Look for jobs and pay your own bills. I'm not your bank. My mother stepped forward, her eyes full of fury. Ivan, if you don't keep paying for us, consider yourself out of this family. Do you hear me? Out. I looked at my father, hoping he would say something, defend me, but he just nodded as if he agreed. Monica and Andres also nodded with cruel smiles. That's when I understood they weren't my family. They had never been. They were freeloaders, parasites who only saw me as a source of money. Perfect, I said with a calmness I didn't even understand myself. I'm out. You're not my family, just a bunch of freeloaders. So I'm leaving, and pay your own bills. I turned around to go to my room to get my things, but Andres grabbed my arm forcefully. You're not going anywhere, he said, pushing me against the wall. You're going to keep paying, whether you like it or not. I pulled away, feeling the adrenaline coursing through my veins. Don't touch me, I warned, pushing him back. This is over. I ran out of the house, my heart pounding. I didn't look back. I knew that if I stayed a second longer, I would lose my nerve. That night, I slept in a hotel, but for the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. That same week, I rented a small apartment, just for myself, with the money I was no longer spending on supporting my family. My life changed. I could afford things I had never dreamed of before, going out with friends, going to the movies, buying clothes I really liked. I even started saving for a trip I had always wanted to take. At work, my performance improved. Without the pressure of supporting 4 people, I could focus on my projects, and my boss started giving me more responsibilities. I felt free, as if a huge weight had been lifted from my shoulders. But my family didn't leave me alone so easily. 2 weeks later, the messages started. First, it was my mother, in a tone that pretended to be sweet, but which I knew all too well. Ivan, son, we don't have money for the rent. Please help us. We're your family. You can't abandon us like this. I didn't reply. The next day, a message arrived from Monica. Ivan, don't be heartless. We don't have food. Send us some money, please. Then it was Andres, with his usual arrogance. Don't act so important, little brother. You know you need us. I laughed when I read the messages, not because it was funny, but because I couldn't believe they had the nerve to keep asking me for money after everything. I replied to them all with the same message, get jobs. I'm not your bank. And I blocked their numbers. I thought that would be the end of it, but it wasn't. One morning, while I was at the office, I received a call from reception. Someone was waiting for me downstairs. When I went down, I saw Andres with his arms crossed and a furious look on his face. Come back home and pay everything, or you'll see the consequences, he said, getting so close I could smell his cigarette breath. I'm not going back, I replied, keeping calm. Get jobs, pay your bills, leave me alone. He tried to push me, but the company's security guard intervened. He told Andres to leave, or he would call the police. Andres looked at me with hatred, muttered something I didn't understand, and left. My legs were shaking, but not from fear, but from the adrenaline of having confronted him. For the first time, I didn't let myself be intimidated. Months went by, and my life continued to improve. At work, I was promoted to marketing coordinator, with a better salary and more benefits. I bought a car, nothing luxurious, but it served its purpose. I went out with friends, traveled to the beach for the first time in years, and started taking photography classes, something I had always wanted to do. I was living, truly living, for the first time in a long time. I heard little from my family at first, but the news eventually reached me. One day, a mutual friend told me that they had been evicted from the house. They hadn't paid the rent, and the landlord kicked them out. My parents were left alone because Monica and Andres left, saying they weren't going to support the elderly. The irony. The same people who had used me were now abandoning each other. I received more messages from my mother and father asking for help, saying they were on the street, that they didn't have food. But I no longer felt guilt, only anger and a strange satisfaction knowing they were facing the consequences of their actions. I replied to one message from my mother. It was brief, but I said everything I needed to say. You never treated me like a son, only like a bank. This is what you deserve. Don't contact me again. And they didn't. Or maybe they tried, but I was no longer available. I changed my number, deleted my social media accounts, and cut off all contact. I didn't need that family. I had found a new family in my friends, in my coworkers, in the people who valued me for who I was, not for what I could give them. Sometimes I think about them, not with nostalgia, but with a kind of distant pity. They used me, lied to me, made me feel less than nothing. But they also taught me something. That family isn't just blood, it's the people who respect you, who truly love you. And I, finally, was surrounded by those people. I'm alone, but I don't feel lonely. I'm free, and I'm happy. Subscribe for more daily stories.